I used to work the night shift at a 24-hour gas station on the edge of town, surrounded by nothing but empty road and dead trees, the kind of place that felt forgotten. Most nights were quiet, but one night something showed up. It was 3:12 a.m., I remember, because I kept checking the clock, counting the minutes until sunrise. The store was empty, just the buzzing of the flickering fluorescent lights above. Then the automatic doors slid open with a hiss, but no one was there. Just the smell, thick, wet, rotting. It seeped into my lungs, coated my throat, my stomach churned. I stepped out from behind the counter, peering outside, but the lot was empty. No cars, no wind, just the dull hum of the streetlights. Then I heard it, drip, drip, drip. I turned. A puddle was forming in the middle of the aisle, dark and thick. I took a shaky step closer. My breath hitched. It was blood, a slow, steady leak from somewhere above. My head snapped up, and there it was, a body, pressed against the ceiling, flattened like roadkill. Its limbs were wrong, stretched out too far, fingers dangling like snapped wires. Its face was twisted in a scream, eyes bulging, mouth gaping open, but no sound came out. And then it moved. Its head snapped toward me with a sickening crack. A wet, choking noise bubbled from its throat. Then in one sudden motion, it peeled away from the ceiling and dropped. I stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs, but the second its body hit the floor, it was gone. Just vanished. The blood was still there, smeared across the tile. But the thing itself, gone. The doors slid open again. A gust of air rushed in, carrying the scent of rot. And something else, something breathing. I turned slowly, every nerve in my body screaming run. It stood in the doorway, tall, too tall. Its skin was stretched tight over sharp bones. Its mouth split into a jagged, dripping grin. And its eyes, black pits, swirling like something inside them was alive. It took a step forward, and I swear I felt the ground shake. My knees locked. I couldn't move. It raised one hand, long skeletal fingers twitching. Its head tilted, that horrible grin widening, and then it spoke. A voice that wasn't a voice, but a wet, writhing sound. Words that slid into my ears and buried themselves deep. You shouldn't have looked. Pain exploded in my skull. My vision blurred. My nose started bleeding. Hot and thick, the thing took another step. Now you see me. The last thing I remember is the lights bursting, glass raining down, like black stars, and the feeling of something cold wrapping around my throat. I woke up in my car, miles away, blood drying on my face, my ears ringing. The gas station? Burned to the ground that same night. They never found a cause, never found a body. Just blood, smeared across the walls, pooled in the aisles, dripping from the ceiling. I never went back. But sometimes in the dead of night, when I close my eyes, I hear it breathing. I worked the graveyard shift at a gas station off a dead stretch of highway. Most nights were quiet, but one night, something else showed up. At around 2:30 a.m., I saw a figure on the security monitor, tall, lanky, standing just outside the pumps. No car, no sound, just there. I grabbed the intercom. You need help? No response. But then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. They weren't touching the ground, just hovering. The automatic doors slid open, but no one was there. A rancid, wet smell filled the air. Then whispers, hushed voices from nowhere, slithering into my ears, into my mind. The lights flickered, went out, a breath, cold against my skin. I turned, a face, inches from mine, pale, stretched, hollow black eyes. Its mouth opened too wide, teeth jagged and rotting. And in a voice like grinding stone, it spoke one word, leave. The lights flashed back on. The doors slid open, and just like that, it was gone. But I felt it watching me as I ran to my car, heart hammering in my chest. The gas station shrank in my rearview mirror, but I swear for just a second, I saw something standing in the road behind me, still hovering, still watching. I never looked back, never went back, never worked a night shift again. But sometimes, late at night, I hear it, a whisper, slithering through my dreams, that same low, guttural voice, leave. I always wake up in a cold sweat, heart pounding, breath shallow. And every single time, The air in my room smells like something old. Wet and rotting, I tried to forget, tried to move on. But last week, I got a call, an old co-worker. He still works the night shift. His voice was shaking. "Man, something's wrong here. The lights keep flickering, and it smells awful, like something dead. And I swear I saw someone outside, just standing there." On my stomach twisted. "Are they defloating?" Silence, then in a whisper, "How did you know?" I hung up, blocked his number. I don't want to know what happened. I don't want to know if he made it through the night. But every time I pass that stretch of highway, my hands grip the wheel a little tighter. My breath gets a little shallower, because I know it's still there, waiting, watching, and someday it might decide I didn't leave far enough. The clock struck midnight. As I embarked on yet another night shift, a routine that had grown hauntingly familiar. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls of the empty office. Silence enveloped me, a companion both comforting and unsettling. And little did I know, it was the perfect prelude to a night filled with spine-chilling occurrences. Hours slipped by in blurs of tedious tasks, when suddenly I felt a cold breeze whisper past me. The windows were tightly sealed, and a wave of unease prickled my skin. I brushed it off, attributing it to fatigue and the silence of the night. But those whispers persisted. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone lurking in the shadows. But the corridor remained as deserted as ever. As the witching hour approached, strange sounds began to rise from the depths of the building. Faint echoes of footsteps reverberated through the halls, the kind that sent chills racing down my spine. Heart racing, I ventured out to investigate, my footsteps hesitant against the cold tiles. Each corner I turned yielded no results, only the oppressive weight of uncertainty hanging in the air. Unease morphed into fear as I returned to my desk, only to find that my computer screen flickered and dimmed, casting grotesque shadows around me. It was as if the very atmosphere was congealing with dread. That's when I noticed a document had opened, by itself, a file I had never seen before. The words scrolled ominously on the screen, detailing unsettling events that had transpired in the building many years ago. Panic surged within me as I closed the document, and in that moment the lights flickered violently before plunging the office into darkness. My heart raced as I fumbled for my phone, its light offering the only reprieve from the consuming shadows. I could feel an unmistakable presence lurking, watching, waiting. Just then, a loud bang reverberated through the office, causing me to jump. The air was heavy with dread, and a profound realization settled in. I was not alone. The night dragged on with more unexplained phenomena, each moment vying to keep me awake. As dawn broke and the sun kissed the horizon, I left the office, forever changed by those haunting hours. The night shift had turned into a true horror story, a recollection that haunted my dreams in the days to come. The night shift can feel like a world apart. As the clock strikes midnight, the familiar sounds of daytime fade, replaced by an eerie silence. Little did I know that my first shift would unravel a series of unnerving events that would haunt my nights forever. It started with flickering lights. I was alone in the office, the only worker amidst a sea of deserted cubicles. As the overhead lights dimmed and brightened sporadically, a chill crept up my spine. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but I had a job to do. I shook off the feeling and focused on my tasks, unaware of the shadow lurking beyond my peripheral vision. Despite my efforts to stay focused, whispers filled the air, soft yet haunting. They seemed to echo from the walls themselves, swirling around me like a sinister wind. Each time I paused to listen, the whispers faded, creating an unsettling game of auditory hide-and-seek. The silence was almost worse than the voices, leaving an oppressive weight in the air that made my heart race. With my nerves fraying, I moved to make some coffee, hoping the warmth would soothe my rattled mind. As I poured my drink, I caught a glimpse of something in the break room, an empty chair rocking slightly, as if someone unseen had just vacated it. The chilling sight made my skin crawl, but rationality took hold. Perhaps it was just the wind, or an old building playing tricks on me. As my shift dragged on, I found myself haunted by an unshakable feeling of being watched. Every creak of the floorboards echoed in my mind, amplifying the threat I felt in those dimly lit corridors. It was during my rounds that I stumbled upon an old filing cabinet, its drawer ajar, revealing a faded photo of a colleague who had mysteriously vanished years prior. The revelation struck me like ice water. The air grew thick, and I felt an icy breath on the back of my neck. Paralyzed, I turned slowly, but the empty hallway offered no solace, only an endless void. When my shift finally ended, I stepped into the morning light, grateful for the dawn's warmth. However, I knew that each night would bring the dread of unknown horrors back to haunt me, reminding me to fear the darkness that lingers when the world sleeps. In the solitude of the night shift, when the world outside drifts into slumber, eerie stories emerge from the shadows. There's something about the stillness that magnifies every creak and whisper, turning mundane tasks into the backdrop for chilling encounters. These tales are not merely figments of imagination. They are experiences birthed from long hours, spent in the silence of the night. Imagine a dimly lit office, the clock ticking mercilessly as the hands approach midnight. Alone with your thoughts, an unsettling sense of being watched creeps over you. Glancing into the reflective surfaces around the room, you catch fleeting glimpses of movement just at the edge of your vision. You brush it off as fatigue, yet each soft sound pulls your focus back, igniting a spark of fear in your heart. Then the unmistakable sound of paper rustling emanates from a dark corner where no one should be. The hair on the back of your neck stands upright as you muster the courage to shine your flashlight into the void, only to find nothing. On another night, the atmosphere grows heavier, suffocating with an inexplicable dread. Your phone vibrates, and you pick it up to find a flood of missed messages from co-workers who had left hours ago. Suddenly the lights flicker ominously, plunging you into darkness. You fumble for your keys, suddenly aware of every heartbeat echoing louder than the silence around you. The dread escalates when your office's security system emits a series of shrill alarms, only they seem like a distant memory. Something is out of place, and every instinct tells you to flee. But something deeper compels you to stay and investigate. As you move through the office, you feel the cold touch of a phantom breeze, chilling you to the core, reminding you that something else resides within these walls. In the final act of these haunting nights, you might encounter a figure, a fleeting shadow reflected in the window, or even hear soft whispers that seem to follow you. These experiences knit themselves into a fabric of reality, redefining what it means to work through the night. So, while you complete your tasks, be aware. Night shift horrors are not only reserved for the darkest recesses of your imagination, but rather they are lurking within the stillness, waiting for you to turn off the lights and embrace the shadows. Night shifts can often turn the ordinary into the extraordinary, transforming mundane routines into thrilling encounters. For those who work the graveyard slot, the whispering silence of the night holds a layered horror within its depths. One evening, as I sat alone in the dimly light break room, an unsettling chill crept through the air, sending shivers down my spine. The clock ticked loudly, a reminder of the slow passage of time and solitude. I could swear I heard faint footsteps echoing through the hallway, but upon inspection, I found only shadows lurking in the corners. As the hours wore on, my mind played tricks on me, and I began to see figures at the edges of my vision. During one particularly eerie shift, I discovered a dusty old photograph tucked away in a file cabinet. The sepia-toned image depicted a group of employees from years past, their vacant stares sending my heart racing. One face, however, seemed strangely familiar, and even more unsettling. It appeared to be a reflection of myself. I soon learned that years ago, a series of mysterious disappearances had left my workplace haunted by the past, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The most spine-chilling experience occurred during another graveyard shift. I received a call on my office line, only to hear heavy breathing on the other end. Thinking it was a prank, I hung up, but moments later, the call came again. This time I answered, and a distorted voice whispered my name before abruptly disconnecting. Panic flooded my senses, and I realized I was alone in the building. Or at least I thought I was. As I made my way to the exit, I felt a sudden rush of cold air, as if something was chasing me. I sprinted through the darkened hallways, my heartbeat sinking with the sound of the silence. As dawn broke, casting a pale light into the office, I knew I would never look at the night shift the same way again. Each sound, each creak of the floorboards felt amplified, and I wasn't sure if I was merely imagining things, or if the shadowy figures of the night had truly come alive. The haunting memories of those sleepless nights lingered, forever etched in my mind, reminding me that sometimes the greatest horrors lie within the familiar. As the clock struck midnight, the world outside faded to a hush, leaving only the rhythmic hum of machinery and the shadows that writhed in the corners of the dimly lit room. It was during these eerie hours that the line between reality and nightmare blurred. Working a night shift in an old hospital, I often felt a creeping unease settle over me, whispering that I was not alone in the silent halls. One night, an electrical outage plunged the entire building into darkness, the low emergency lights flickering like dying fireflies. I stumbled through the maze of the ward, my heart pounding in sync with the distant echo of footsteps that were not my own. Every whispered breeze seemed to carry a voice, urging me to turn back. But curiosity pulled me deeper into the foreboding shadows. Suddenly I stumbled upon a patient's room, the door ajar. Inside, a figure sat in the corner, shrouded in darkness, softly humming a lullaby. I froze. The patient had been discharged weeks ago. My pulse quickened as the figure turned, revealing hollow eyes and a ghostly smile that chilled my bones. After that night, it became a pattern. Each shift unfurled a new tale of terror. One evening, a peculiar feeling enveloped me, wrapping tightly around my throat. As I watched the clock tick slowly towards 3 a.m., I glanced up to see the reflection of a woman in the glass of the nurse's station, her mouth moving silently as she gestured frantically. The room was empty, yet her gaze bore into me, pleading for help. Heart racing, I turned around, only to find her gone, leaving behind nothing but a lingering chill and a sense of impending doom. On particularly long shifts, whispers danced through the air, voices sharing secrets meant to remain hidden. Shadows slipped and slithered, often coiling around the corners of my vision. It felt as if the walls themselves could breathe, alive with the stories of those who had once walked its halls. I began to dread the soft ticking of the clock, each tick echoing the whispers from the dark corners, summons to a world I could hardly understand. Night shifts transformed into haunting memories, leaving behind a dreadful reminder that in the stillness of night, horrors whisper, and reality intertwines with the forgotten tales of the past. Every night, as the clock strikes midnight, the world transforms into a shadowy realm, filled with eerie whispers and unsettling sounds. The first night I took up my night shift, the air was thick with an unsettling silence that enveloped the location, stealing away the warmth of the daytime ambience. As I settled into my post, I recalled tales shared by previous employees, each one more harrowing than the last. I brushed them off as mere urban legends, but a creeping unease settled into my bones. As the hours ticked away, I found myself enveloped in an unsettling atmosphere. The fluorescent lights flickered sporadically, casting long shadows that danced along the walls, making the mundane spaces seem alive with hidden terrors. It felt as though the very walls were breathing, echoing the distant sounds of machinery and the occasional rattle of equipment. That's when the first peculiar occurrence happened. A sudden knock resonated from the back room, where no one was supposed to be. I dismissed it as a trick of the mind, convincing myself it was just the building. Settling. With the rising tension came a chilling cold, seeping through the cracks of my uniform. I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling eyes on me, as if I were not alone. Then, through the dim glow of the security monitors, a figure flickered into view, a fleeting shadow, darting past the screen. Heart racing, I grabbed the radio, but it was as if the air grew thicker, and the device emitted nothing but ominous static. Every instinct urged me to investigate, but a weight held me back, wrapping around my limbs like chains. As the night dragged on, I experienced a surreal sense of déjà vu. Faces began to form in shadows. Moments from the past flickered in my mind, and I could almost hear their unheard cries. I felt as though I was caught in a loop, watching unseen dramas unfold in the corners of my vision. Every creak, every whisper grew louder, coiling tight around my sanity. In the early hours of dawn, a final chilling revelation unraveled, an unspeakable truth woven into the very fabric of the night. I was not merely working, I was a witness to the stories of lost souls, wandering through the fabric of time, whispering their tragic stories into the silent stillness, leaving an indelible scar etched into my memory. As daybreak approached, I realized that each night is not merely a shift. It's a dance with the shadows, unfolding mysteries of the unknown.